I want you to meet Terri. Let me throw up her website. So Terri, we talked about leasing being an activity that we've pushed outside of management. Why don't you talk a little bit, let me do something here real quick. I want to set this up. Why don't you talk a little bit about, and actually if you hold the mic, because how you and I met, how our relationship has evolved. We've talked about leasing and stuff like that. So just kind of give them the personal narrative of the last 8 years business-wise, how it's evolved for you.
Okay. In 2005, I decided I wanted to get my salesperson license. I wanted to sell homes here in Indy, and I wanted to sell high-end stuff. I was very young at the time, so I tried very hard for about 6 months, couldn't get a listing, couldn't sell a house. So I started working with a gentleman out of Chicago that was just leasing other people's properties. And I did that with him for about 7 months, and Aaron was one of his largest clients. Well, in December of 2005, he decided that it just wasn't working as well in Indianapolis as it was in Chicago, and he quit. He closed the business. So I went to Aaron and I said, hey, Aaron, I know you've been using this service, but he's no longer doing it. What if I still advertise your properties and show them, screen the tenants, will you still pay me first month's rent? And he said yes, and we actually partnered at that time, started Place to Live Rentals, and had a couple other partners. And then over the years, we bought out partners, and it kind of evolved into me learning the city very well. I learned where people wanted to live, what they were willing to pay, what a two-bedroom on a certain block of a certain street would rent for. So I helped Aaron preview properties for auction. I'd go and look at them and say, okay, yeah, here's the rent rate. And I'd ride around with Robert a lot, and he kind of taught me how to estimate construction costs. And then it turned into I was actually buying properties for Aaron at one of the other auctions here in town, and off the MLS for him.
So one of the reasons why I like to have Terri come last on Saturday and Sunday is because, kind of like what I was mentioning earlier, Terri is a millionaire. Terri is a business owner. Terri is someone who just got a real estate license and found an entry into the business through leasing, just like you could find that through wholesaling, or you could find that being a contractor. The point is if you want to scale up what you're doing in real estate, you need to find a way that's a good and easy entry point. I mean, think about our team. Becca entered in because she was bartending and started leasing. Megan entered in as a maintenance coordinator. Brant entered in as a contractor. Ellen entered in because she had some money and she was an investor, and then she actively invested, but she kept her job. In every scenario, it was kind of this makes sense way to be in real estate, to have a JOB, but they've grown it into much, much more. Does that make sense? It's a narrative that's really easy to follow. No, very few people go from $40,000 a year W-2 to I just made $700,000 on my second flip. It doesn't work that way. But if you think about it, where you are now financially was either a long slide into where you didn't want to be, or some CLE that dropped you down there, and you haven't been able to dig your way out of that. Make sense? But what I like about Terri is that as extroverted as I am, she's very introverted. As much as I enjoy teaching and meeting people and working with partners and investors, that's not Terri's comfort zone. But we have some very common personality traits that have allowed us both to get to that destination. Terri knows how to work really, really hard. Terri knows how to treat her employees well and build relationships one at a time with people. And so she's comfortable leading. And that's why, I mean, how many leasing agents are finding properties for you right now?
I have 3 leasing agents and then 2 admins right now.
So when I signed the contract with 510 Capital for Indianapolis, and I have $1 million a month to spend, first person I went to was Terri. She just did a portfolio of 26 properties for the fund and got paid on each one of those deals. And she's got these leasing agents that are sourcing properties for her, and she and I partner up on deals. And she essentially has a blank checkbook between me and my partners for up to $2 million a month if she can find good deals. Because over the years, we've built that trust one relationship at a time, one deal at a time. And so one of the mistakes that I see people make is they want to make a giant jump from where they are right now into where we are. But even look at Jake. Think of the uncertainty that Jake had. Bring that up. Think of the uncertainty that Jake had in week number 1 when he was just hanging out at my office. Week number 2 when he, oops, I don't play that yet. Wrong one. That was my fly down again. Week number 2 when he was, just, was it blurry again? Is that right? Think of all of that evolution that Jake had to go through where he was not making any money. He came out here, I think it was like $18,000 was what he thought he needed to live off of for a year. Because he's a college student, he's used to eating ramen noodles. He was like, okay, $500 for rent. But there was weeks and weeks and nights and hours of uncertainty that he went through before he made a penny. You look at him now and you're like, oh, I want to be like Jake. I want to be the prodigy. I want to make $180,000. But are you willing to pay the price that Jake did? Think of the gamble that he took. I got a degree. I got $18,000. And I got a girlfriend. That was it. I'm moving from Reno to Indiana where I've never lived in my life. Do you have that kind of courage? Think about the courage that was involved with Terri. I mean, what was your financial picture when you started Place to Live Rentals?
I had no debt, but I had no assets either. I didn't own a home. I didn't own anything. I had, a debit card with $2,000 on it that we started running ads off of.
Yeah, I mean, she was just flying by the seat of her pants. I remember thinking when I did that first flip, because I was using my student loans, I remember thinking, well, I really don't have any money now, so if I go bankrupt, I'd rather do it on these first couple of deals. And that's how I slept at night. I did. And when I meet people that have made a lot of money, they all have a story that's kind of similar to that, where there was that point where they then had to take the chance and take the gamble and kind of go all in, so to speak, because that's what people have done. And so it's important that you understand that also, but it's also really important that it doesn't matter what your strengths are, you can get to that destination. Because think of all the different ways now Terri has to make money. She knows how to run a small business, a multi-million-dollar small business. She knows how to do books. She knows what's involved with legal. She knows how to do marketing. She knows what's involved with generating leads from websites. She knows how to lease properties. She has a real estate brokerage. She's got a broker's license. She knows how to buy properties for private equity funds. You see how she's got all these different, on any one of those different ways, she could make a living from that. She's just out acquiring skills. And then she figures out how to work them, or it's like, okay, oh, Aaron's got a portfolio that we can do for the fund. Good, I'm going to work on that. I'm going to use all these skills for that. Oh, Aaron just needs me to go to auction. I'm going to do that. Oh, my leasing agents have this chance to list this property, and we can make 20 grand. Okay, I'm going to do that. So the goal is with your education, not just to get knowledge in a book, because it's useless there, to get knowledge that has some experience and some money that you've made behind it, because you add that to your toolkit. Do you see that? You take all the classes from Rich Dad or from any education, that's not the education. The classes are just the textbook. It's when you get out and do deals and make money, that's the education. You can't leave the wholesaling class and say, yeah, I know how to wholesale, until you've done a deal. Yes or no? A lot of people mistake that. I mean, people are like, oh, I'm going to take all the classes first because I need to get all my knowledge, and then I'm going to go get rich. I'm like, what? Those are just the starting point. That's like, here's some ideas to wholesale. Now go figure out in your town because there's probably a bunch of things that are different. Then you go do some deals and go, well, this is how it worked in Northeast Chicago. This is what we figured out. And we started thinking it was this, and then, man, we found this opportunity in mobile homes, or we found that probate was huge, or lease options, or, there's a tweak, there's an entry point. That'd be another good reality show called, you don't think you can make money in your market? Let me show you how in 6 months, because you're just not looking under the right rocks. I'd love to do that. Yeah. I need help with that, right? But the idea, the pitch for the show, you get it. What am I missing, Terry? Poor Terry, I make her come here every month, but do you see how important it is? I know, I see in some of your faces you're going, yeah, I can do what Terry does. Because before I was thinking it's just you got to be an extrovert, you got to be loud, and 7 swear word limit, you know. So I want to take that away. I don't want that. I don't want you to have that excuse. Because what Terri does every day is an honest function of who she is. She doesn't have work persona where she tries to be all alpha or something that she's not, and then her personal life. She's just always chill like this. She's always thoughtful. She's always a great partner. She's very trustworthy. And that's why we will always work together, because we have a nice balance, and I trust her, and that's very important. Make sense? Any questions for Terri about leasing or owning a brokerage? Now, if I got dropped in Birmingham with just my driver's license, the other thing that I would do is start leasing properties. Leasing and bird dogging are 2 ways that you can make quick cash. Any questions about leasing? Bye, Becca. We love you. So long, farewell. Goodbye. Becca got stung by a stingray and it's getting infected. She's on antibiotics and it's like getting black, so she's going to the doctor right now. They're saying there might be venom. We told her she could get a shiny little metal foot to run on. So. She didn't think that was funny. What? A flipper. She's so quick. She'd have the cutest little metal flipper foot. Terri was saying that joke. Terry's the one who said that joke. So just so you know, she's not all. That was I just copyrighted you on that. When she makes those kind of jokes, we call her Trish. Terry's sweet and nice. Trish likes to party. No. Okay, the last thing I want to finish talking about for just the last few minutes that we have and just emphasize at the end is this whole concept of what we've been talking about all weekend. 5-figure mindset. Transforming that to a 7, 8, 9-figure mindset. Now, I have a clip here that I want to start off this with. How many of you remember the movie Castaway with Tom Hanks? You got 3 characters. You got Tom Hanks, Wilson the volleyball, who played himself, right? Tom Hanks' character, anybody remember who his character was? Chuck, the engineer for FedEx. Wilson, the volleyball from Wilson. Kelly, played by Helen Hunt, not stranded on a desert island, okay? Who has never seen the movie Castaway? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No shame in that. Now, as in all Hollywood movie clips, I want to show you the 2-minute clip because they show you the whole movie in the clip. Okay? So I want to show you the clip just to give you an overview of what this movie was about. Let me pull it up. That's what started to autoplay on me before. There may be a commercial since it is YouTube.
In an ordinary life, extraordinary events can change a man forever. Merry Christmas. I'll be right back.
My granddaddy used it on the Southern Pacific.
I'm always going to keep this on Memphis time.
doing that match. Take a chance, will you? They think that we are right here. 160 times pi 3.1. That's a search area that's twice the size of Texas. We never ever allow ourselves to sit. We're turning our back on time.
I love you. You're the love of my life.
I would rather take my chance out there in the ocean than to stay here and die.
Okay. Now, Robert Zemeckis was the writer, producer of the movie. And I read an interview with him where he pointed out that the movie was called Castaway, the verb, not Castaway, the noun. Any English majors in here want to? No. No, remember conjunction. Junction was. Yeah. Noun is a person, place, or thing. All right, fail. I was a teacher. Go.
The noun is like he is the castaway. The verb would be he is casting something away.
Yes. The noun is, there was a book about a castaway called Robinson Crusoe, right? The question was whether that castaway, the noun, would get off the island. Now, a castaway can also be cast away, right? Cast away.
Make it real.
High school teacher, baby. So, we know that Chuck was cast away from his life. And we also know, is there any question that that castaway is going to come back? There's no question. They just showed us. He sees Kelly again. They hug and make out in the driveway, right? He's back. And so one of the first things Robert Zemeckis said is this movie is not about a castaway. It's about being cast away. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, I never got that from that movie. I just was like, oh, look at Tom Hanks. He lost 80 pounds. That's amazing. How skinny he was. Best actor. You know, remember those? They were like, oh, there's not any dialogue for 2 hours of the whole movie. It's just him on the island. And a lot of people talked about the cinematography, but not what the message of the movie was. And when I learned that, it really made me think, cast away. Let's take a fictional character, and by no fault of his own, let's screw him over. Was it Chuck's fault that FedEx put him on a plane for work? No. Was it his fault? Was there any causation in his actions that led to that? No. Was it Chuck's fault that the plane encountered a storm? Was it Chuck's fault the plane crashed? Was it Chuck's fault that the search area was the size of Texas and there was no chance he would ever be found? No. Did he do anything wrong for that? No. He was just screwed over. CLE, baby. And then somehow we know he gets back. We don't know kind of what happens. That's why we need to watch the movie. And then we see him get screwed over again. Because what happens when he's back? Kelly's remarried. Spoiler alert. She's remarried. And some they say, so let's cast him away in a crazy, outlandish, may never happen situation. Let's bring him back to the real world and cast him away. Because hasn't each one of us been completely screwed over by no fault of our own at one time or another? And let's see if there's some life lessons that we can take about the mindset that possibly got him off the island and helped him move forward that we can internalize to be better. That's that point of that movie. And who got that? Because I sure didn't get it when I saw it the first time. So I started thinking about it. I thought, you know what? When you look at success, now this can be success in anything, but this is not a self-help weekend. This is not a religious weekend. Hence the 7 cap instead of 0 cap, swear limit. If you look at success with money, I've always thought that you have a convergence of 3 things. Oops. You have knowledge, you have weakness, and you have fears. As I've looked at the Hirsch-Claffs of the world, and the Warren Buffetts of the world, and the other wealthy, high-achieving people that I've met, I always look at them and say, what role does their success, is the knowledge that they've gained, tie in with the fears that they have to overcome, and how do they encounter their own personal weaknesses to be successful financially? That's what I've looked at over and over again for 15 years. Now, 5-figure Aaron, $40,000 a year teacher Aaron, would have said the most important thing for success is knowledge. That's what I would have said initially. I would have said, if you get the knowledge and you learn how to do things, then you'll be successful. 8-figure net worth Aaron says, I think knowledge is about 1% of importance. And 99% of it is learning to overcome your fears and complement your weaknesses. Now, when I turned 40 last year, 40 is a big milestone. You become reflective. Those early morning reading sessions, I start really marinating on life. And I remember thinking, man, I really thought 40 would feel different than 20. Because when I was 20, 40 seemed old. I remember when my dad turned 40 and I was 16. And thinking, wow, that's so old. And now that I'm 40, I think, old is 80. 80 is old. 60 is like really figuring things out. By 60, I have to have things figured out. But the relative progress that I've made since 20 is not anywhere near what I thought it would be. Now, 40-year-old Aaron has much, much, much more knowledge about life. I mean, I was a history major. History majors are good at trivia. I'm good at Trivia Pursuit. When I bartended, I'd play Heads Up Trivial Pursuit Challenge. How nerdy is that? I love trivia. I love knowledge. I read a lot, fiction and nonfiction. But I meet a lot of well-read people. I read a lot of unsuccessful educators who have a lot of knowledge. Financially, they're unsuccessful. And I meet a lot of financially unsuccessful people that have failed in businesses. And what I thought would be the reality, that if I just learned more, I would have more, has not proven to be true. And I think that this movie actually supports that. I think that, whatever your belief is in a faith-based system, I believe that we all are born into this world with an inherent set of fears that get handed to us and weaknesses that we have to deal with throughout our lives. I don't really see people changing their weaknesses. I don't see that. Now, I could be wrong, and for every example that I give, you may have a counterexample. But I see people who are either haunted by their weaknesses over and over again their whole life, or I meet people who find other people's strengths that complement their weaknesses. Think about Lincoln. He does such a fantastic job running the operations of my company. He has excellent compatibility, his analytical skill set, his meticulous attention to detail perfectly complements those things that are a weakness to me. Do you see that? I haven't gotten more analytical. I haven't gotten more meticulous or more organized. I just brought someone in who could do that for me and found a way to make it be something they want and that helps move their life forward. Next step. Why? You see that? And because of that, we make more money together. Well, we actually create synergy. The word that I hate. Okay. 1 + 1 is 4 with our combined efforts. So Chuck gets on the island. A bunch of packages wash ashore. Anybody remember what some of the packages were? Ice skate. What did he use the ice skate for? Yeah, one particularly gruesome thing. Yeah, knocked his tooth out with the ice skate. Dental tool. Which I love because at the same time, Kelly's marrying the dentist. Like, I don't know, that seemed ironic to me. It's like a Robert Zemeckis middle finger to Chuck. So he gets these packages, but what better person to give the packages to than a C-3PO, analytical? So you give him all these tools to survive, because if he dies, then he can't be perfectly screwed over, right? Can't have that happening. And, you know, you saw him cut his hand in the clip, and he grabs the volleyball, and then he sees the little face, and he carves the eyes, and now he has a friend that he can talk to. He builds a raft, tries to get off the island, and as you saw in the clip, it gets knocked back. What happens? Why did it get knocked back? First he tried the tube. It got knocked back from the waves. Then he builds a raft. It gets knocked back from the waves. What makes big waves around islands? Coral reefs. There's an area in Hawaii called Bonsai Pipeline. It makes some of the most beautiful waves in the world for surfers. The problem is if you fall down, you get flayed alive by the coral reef underneath. But it makes great waves. So Chuck had his coral reef that was keeping him prisoner on the island, didn't he? In the form of giant waves. Couldn't get off. No one was going to find him. Help sign in the sand didn't work. Bonfires didn't work. And they did a good job of making him a prisoner on the island. And when he comes to the realization, even though he's created survival, he's found food, he's found water, he's built shelter, when he comes to the realization, uh-oh, I'm not getting off the island. Nobody's going to find me. He starts to fall into depression. And he realizes he only has one thing that he's got control over in his whole life. What is that? He goes to the darkest place that you can go to. Self-extermination. He says, the only thing I can control, because I've lost all control, is when and where. So he decides, you saw him standing up on that cliff with the tree hanging out. He says, since that's the only thing I have control over in my life, that's how I'm going to do it. I want to hang myself off the highest point of this island. I want to hang myself off the tree. Exercising control over his prison. That's how dark it gets. Love that. What a powerful what's the word? Cinematic. What a powerful cinematic message of complete loss. Because Mr. Analytical Engineer has to test the log, test the tree, make sure it's strong enough to hang himself. Because he didn't want to break his legs and fall and then slowly die. So he finds a log, he builds a rope, and he ties it to the tree, and he throws it out, and what happens? It snaps the tree. And with that tree limb breaking, poor Chuck is completely broken and screwed over. They take away his last vestige of control, literally, metaphorically, he's screwed. And they say, okay, you have no control, and you're in a horrible situation. The only thing that can save you is your mindset and how you approach life. Because you can't control it anymore. What you going to do, Chuck? Well, he's walking on the beach one day, and what washes ashore? Not a dumpster, close. A porta potty. A big plastic porta potty. Now Chuck sees it as a sail. He mounts it on the raft. He makes raft 3.0, because 1.0 was the yellow raft. That got killed. Raft 2.0 was the raft no sail. That got knocked. Raft 3.0, as soon as he gets up the wave, he flips the sail up, it catches the breeze, pushes him up over the wave, and then he's able to row himself into open sea, and that's how he gets saved. Now, isn't a sail from a porta potty a stretch? I think it's interesting. It's like, what's the most random thing that we could have wash ashore and have Chuck make it into a sail? That's interesting. That's significant. That was deliberate, because it didn't happen that way. Because couldn't he have taken a big piece of plastic, this the man who made a volleyball his friend, couldn't he have heated it up over the fire and made it into tubing and then made fresh water supply so he could have a shower? Couldn't he have cut it into pieces and built a dry shelter that he could finally sleep on? Get out of the cave, maybe? What's that? But hadn't he already shown resourcefulness that he could have found a million different ways to improve his condition on the island with a big piece of plastic? He was focusing on what? Right. See, when I worked in the casino, I met people all the time who, man, casino workers are miserable. Anybody ever work in a casino? The casino workers are as degenerate gamblers as